I was in, I was at the Stratford Shakespeare Festival in Ontario, Canada, doing a play, A Streetcar Named Desire, playing Stanley Kowalski. Billy was casting to live and die in L.A. in New York, in Manhattan. His casting director was a man by the name of Bob Weiner, and Bob was interviewing actors for the movie. Billy evidently wanted no names. He wanted to kind of, I think, mimic what he had done with French Connection, because really Gene Hackman was not known then, and Roy Scheider nobody knew who he was. And I think he was trying to capture that idea that, I want to put these guys in the movie, and I don't want anybody to think, oh, that's Richard Gere or that's Mel Gibson, And so he was looking for unknown actors in film. And he was interviewing one actor, a friend of mine by the name of Gary Sinise, and he interviewed Gary. This is Bob Weiner, the casting director, and when he was done interviewing him and reading him, he said, okay, you're not going to get this part, but do you know anybody in Chicago? Because I hear Chicago's really happening with all these actors, and I know you're a member of Steppenwolf Theater. Do you know anybody who would be right for this part? And Gary, being a mensch, said, well, I do know a guy named Billy Petersen in Chicago, and he might be right for the part. So Bob Weiner tracked me down in Canada. I happened to be up in Canada doing the play, and he flew up there by himself and came to the play and met me in the lobby after the play and said, let's get a cup of coffee. And we talked. He was a very strange sort of guy, and I didn't know him. And we had a cup of coffee, and he left, went back to New York. And he called me up, and he said, would you be willing to come down to New York to meet Mr. Friedkin? I said, well, I have shows on Sunday. The only day I don't have shows is on Monday. He says, well, we'll fly you down on Monday, and you could meet with Mr. Friedkin if you're interested in doing this movie. And I flew down on Monday to Manhattan, and all of a sudden found myself at Billy Friedkin's fabulous Fifth Avenue house, really. And I sat there with Billy for 45 minutes, and I was in awe because, of course, The Exorcist and French Connection, and I didn't really know what to say, although I did know he was from Chicago, so we had that in common. And he tossed me a script, and I read a scene with him, just sitting in his living room. And I put it down, and he said, that's great, you got the part. I didn't have an agent, nothing. And I was like, really? I got the part? Yeah. So I left his apartment and went to a hotel because I was staying overnight to fly back on Tuesday morning. And we got a call from Bob Weiner, the casting director, and he said, we want to make a deal with you for this movie. A deal? I have no idea. Well, my friend John Malkovich had just made his first movie. So I called and talked to his wife, and I said, I got to know what John made on his first movie because I have no idea what to do about making a deal with these guys. And so that's how it happened. And by that evening, he called me up and asked me to come back over to his apartment because he wanted me to read with another actor to play Vukovich. And I did that, and we decided that wasn't quite right. And he said, is there anybody you know that could play this part? And I said, well, I have a great friend that's here that I've done a ton of theater with. His name's John Pankow, and he's understudying a play on Broadway. He was doing Amadeus on Broadway. And he said, well, bring him over in the morning. I said, well, I got an 11 o'clock flight. I got to get... So we ran over. Johnny and I ran over to Billy Friedkin's place on Tuesday morning and improvised a scene around his couch. And he said, I like it. You got the part. So John and I are downstairs now waiting for a cab. He's going uptown. I'm going to the airport. And we're standing there going, okay, Mr. Friedkin's flipped over to the other side. He's cast us both like in a matter of minutes. Doesn't know either of us. This can't be happening. This is just some sort of, he's telling all these actors in New York they all have the part in his movie. Must be happening. And the next thing I knew, I went back to Stratford, and the next night Billy flew up and saw the play and took the whole cast out to dinner afterwards, and we started talking about the movie. And then I had never done a thing. And then I said, well, he was going to start shooting in October. And I said, well, I'm committed to this play till the end of October. He goes, well, you could get out 2-week notice. I said, I really don't feel comfortable doing that. And he pushed the movie back for me. I mean, nobody would ever do that, you know? So, I mean, completely unique. My first 2 movies, to work with Friedkin and Michael Mann on these first 2 movies, it was an education in 1 year that you couldn't have gotten if you would have been out here in LA for 20 years.
Does this mean that you won't carry your weight if something goes down?
Look, what I'm saying is we could have got shit canned for this little trick. If you expect me to take the heat, you should tell me about it before you do it.
If I'd asked you, what would you have said?
I'd have said that the cops probably would have let us copy the diary after it was booked into evidence.
Well, I wouldn't have done it if I was with somebody I didn't trust.
Look, I'm no snitch.
We got to rehearse a lot. Billy wanted to go to the locations, actually, and rehearse, which was also unique. I mean, we actually went to the airport, to LAX, and came up with that idea of running along the escalator, you know, and doing that whole thing. I got to have time with Darlene at the little house that she lived in, you know, where we were. So he had gotten all his locations in advance, took the actors, and we got to work on these scenes together. We got to work on the script with him, what didn't work, what didn't come out of our mouth right. I mean, half the movie is kind of improvised because he wanted such a fast-paced shooting thing. He wanted the movie to just move, you know, and so he didn't want the actors to stop. He didn't want to hit marks. He didn't want to make sure you're in the light. He wanted to shoot it as if it was really happening. And Robbie Mueller, the director of photography, was a genius in that, in being able to do that, to capture it. Sometimes we would think we were doing a rehearsal, and he would tell Robbie to just turn the camera on. And we would do what we thought was a rehearsal, and he'd say, that's it, I got the scene. No coverage, just that camera from there captured what he wanted in the rehearsal. I was like, whoa, wait a minute, what do you mean? What, we're not doing this again? But there's so many things I could do with this. And he'd be like, I got what I want.
Mr. Masters? How you doing? Ben Jessup. My associate, Dr. George Victor.
Pleasure. How do you do?
Cut yourself shaving, Mr. Jessup?
No, as a matter of fact, I got hit by a tennis ball.
You're in from Palm Springs, huh?
Yeah.
What's the weather like there?
It's really nice.
We've been up here the last few days.
I've got a friend in Palm Springs, Lenny Green. He owns the Oasis. You know him?
I got a friend in Hollywood, Donald Duck. You know him?
That was the other thing. I learned everything there is to know about LA in 3 months with Billy, because we were everywhere. You know, we were in San Pedro, we were in Pasadena. It was phenomenal. We were on the freeway going the wrong way. I mean, he blocked off the 710 freeway for 2 weekends. 2 Saturdays and Sundays we shot on the 710 freeway with trucks and cars. I mean, he had 200 extras driving cars and trucks, big trucks, semis, sliding sideways. And I remember the first day we were shooting it, and I realized all of a sudden we were going on the wrong side of the road. I was going against the traffic. The traffic was coming this way, but it was, and then the other traffic was going that way, right? But we were on the wrong side of the freeway, like we were in England or something, right? And I said to him, I said, Billy, I mean, I'm sure you're aware of this, but we're on the wrong side of the freeway. We should actually be over there going that way, and the car's coming this way. If you look at the movie, you'll actually see it. And again, this great lesson. He said, I'm disorienting the audience. He said, you're disorienting me, that's for sure. And sure enough, that's what he did, you know. And again, I learned all these lessons about how you can do, what you can do with film. I remember several years later, I was doing a play in Chicago, and Barry Levinson came to the play to see it. And afterwards, we were in the bar, and he was gracious enough to buy us a beer and say he liked the play. And we were talking, and he said, we started talking about Friedkin. And he said, as far as he's concerned, Billy Friedkin knows how to use film better than anybody in the business. How to use film to get that thing. And, you know, if you look at things like The Exorcist and The French Connection, it's obvious. You know, it's and, you know, I didn't even realize it at the time, but, you know, that energy that we created. So I never felt, I was always, at the end of the day, felt like I hadn't even done anything, that I hadn't acted at all. You know, that I showed up, I drove the car, and now I'm going home. You know, and it was kind of great that way. It was very spontaneous and improvisational, and he knew exactly what he was doing. And he never had to look through the camera or anything. He'd look at his cameraman and say, did you get it? And he'd go, yeah.
You're not wired, are you? Is this my package?
Look okay?
You're beautiful.
But it was great. All of a sudden, you know, we're up in San Luis, and then next thing I know, I'm standing in the middle of this prison. And convicts are everywhere. Now, that prison up there is a bit of a, you know, country club-like prison. I mean, it didn't have a whole lot of serious murderers, you know. They had a lot of white-collar guys and a lot of drug guys. And, but he got us access into the prison, and we used the prisoners in the movie, which was amazing too, because, I mean, it was running and gunning, and you know, there were no rules. I remember when we got to the airport to do this scene in the airport where I chased down John Turturro's character. We had gone there and rehearsed it and thought, oh, this would be great. I'll get up on the escalator and run along there and go past all the people and jump and chase him. And so we got to that point where we were shooting, and the head of the airport, who was with us on the set, said, excuse me, we rehearsed it with the camera, and he said, no, we can't have him jump up on that and run along the top of the escalator. We can't, that's just not gonna happen. We don't wanna start letting people think they can do that in an airport. So Billy came over to me and he said, the guy doesn't want us to do the shot. I said, oh, Billy, we gotta do the shot. That's the whole point of being here. And he said, well, I'm gonna tell Robbie to roll, and I'm going to tell you in front of everybody not to do that. And then, however you feel, you do what you need to do. So he said, all right, Billy, we can't do it up there. I need you to go along the escalator just like regular and just knock through people and go through. Okay, all right. Yeah. Ready? Roll cameras. Action. I come running around the corner. I jump up on the thing. I run along there. Robbie's shooting as fast as he can. You know, he's chasing me on a cart. And I jump down at the end, and shot's over. Guy's freaking out. He goes, I just told you can't do that. I said, you know, I had rehearsed it that way, and it got in my head, and I'm sorry. I did it. I'm sorry. And Billy said, don't worry about it. We won't use it. We'll shoot him now. Now we'll shoot you the way you're supposed to do it. And I went through there, and of course we used it. I mean, yeah, some stuff was dangerous, but it wasn't dangerous beyond anything else that would be dangerous, you know. And he had really good people all the time, everywhere. You know, our stunt guys were phenomenal. We did some dangerous stuff, stunt-wise, in terms of that. And we got away with all of it. I tore up a camera. They had a camera mounted on the side of my car, and we're down in East LA, driving through the warehouse district, you know, and I'm racing through these trucks, and he's got guys opening doors, and he wants me to pull through like this, and all of which was great. And I got to do the driving, and it was all pumped up. Panko was freaking out in the back seat. He did not want me driving this car, and he did not want to be in the car either. Every scene that we do in the car, he'd go, "Do I have to be in the back seat? Are you going to actually see the guy in the back seat? Get in there." And off we'd go. And I was going through there the one time doing this shot, and I had a camera mounted on the side because they wanted that thing, and he let me drive it. And of course, I got past the corner of the truck with the car, but the camera mount hit the truck. And then they told me how much one of those cameras was, and I was like, sorry.
I think we lost the mothers.
I don't see him, man.
Huh?
I don't see him. We fucking did it, man.
We made it, baby.
We did it. God damn it, we did it. Oh, shit. You had me scared out of my fucking mind, man. You had me scared out of my Huh? Sons of bitches.
The first time I saw the movie was Billy actually, he had let my theater company in Chicago do a screening of it as a benefit. So we charged people to come see the movie who were part of our theater. And so I had friends and family, and everybody all over the place was there. And I saw it. I'd never do that again. And I remember afterwards going into the bar with everybody and talking about the movie and saying, you know, oh, there's these scenes that weren't in it that I wished were still in it, blah, blah, blah. And Bud Smith was our editor, and he was there. He had come with the movie for the thing. And I realized he was hearing me. I said, you know, Bud, I don't mean, you know, I just like, you know, because again, I was unfamiliar with how movies work and the whole editing process and what the thing is and why the scenes disappear. You shoot them and then they don't ever end up in the movie, you know, because you start to think, well, that's an important thing, you know, and you find out at the end of the day that it's not, and that they're right, and that the editors and the director know what they're doing. There was only one, because of course, I get my head blown off in the movie, and somehow or another, the producers at the end of the day, when they saw it, they said, you know, this is really kind of a downer. And I remember talking to Billy about it in Malibu. We were walking on the beach, and he said, you know, they really want me to do something about this ending. And I said, but Billy, that's why we made the movie. We made the movie because we could play it this way because that's how it ends, right? And he agreed. And he said, I got to do something. I got to give him something. So he came up with a scene that John Panko and I shot over at Culver Studios. Where they built a set where we were in like a weather station for the Secret Service up in the North Pole or something. And I had my head covered in bandages and stuff. And it was so silly and ridiculous that, you know, he shot it in such a way that there was no way they could use it. You know, just... Billy was great. I learned so much from him in terms of how you can do stuff and what you should do. Well, I mean, the Wang Chung soundtrack is a classic. I mean, it's just, you hear that music and all of a sudden you're back in the movie. Again, that was a who would have thought of that? And Wang Chung's like two guys in England, you know? And he specifically told them, do not write a song that has "To Live and Die in L.A." in the title. And of course they immediately did. And he loved it and he put it in, you know. I mean, it's funny. You know, sometimes the great thing about this business is there are very many happy accidents, you know. And to be a filmmaker is being able to be open to the happy accidents. And I've been fortunate to work with guys that were able to do that.